Hello there everyone, Mr. E here, and as the year of 2025 draws to a close, let's do some recapping. Let's finalize a few sort of rankings and let everyone know where we stand going into 2026. And today's video, as you probably saw from the title, is all about ranking the classes against each other. This is something I love doing on this channel. I think it's a really interesting question. It all comes down to your own personal experience a lot of times, but also how you evaluate the classes and how they can be powerful in the game. And that is going to be the exercise again today. Now, I only did this about 3 months ago. Usually I let it go for a little bit longer. Not too much has changed other than there's been a big addition to the roster. There's a 6th character class now, the Hive Scum, and there have been some balance changes among the rest of the roster as well. I've also had some more time to play with the rest of the characters and really sort of feel out where they're at currently. So this will be a little bit shorter than the previous version of this, where I went through each class very laboriously, sort of explaining the strengths and the weaknesses. I'll still do that, but this is really going to be mostly an exercise in trying to figure out where the Hive Scum currently ranks among the characters. And I think that you guys probably have some intuition as to where it might rank, but there are some other changes in terms of my evaluation of different classes and their strengths. So I'll let you know right now that, yeah, that's not the only addition, the only change that's going to be made from my previous rankings on these. If you didn't see that video, go check it out. I think it's still pretty good. It's a nice little time capsule to see how I felt about the classes. And that was just post the major rework that changed the Zealot, the Veteran, and the Psyker. This is going to be a little bit different still. And yeah, I'll be very interested to see if you guys can post in the comments and guess exactly how I have differed my opinion. And here's Bernie to give you his. What is that little guy? Yeah. Yes. Okay, so what we're going to start with today is we're actually going to go from the top down, because I think that's a little bit predictable what's going to be at the top of the list. If you have been keeping abreast of what's been going on with certain classes in the game, and then we're going to work our way down to the very bottom, where that's going to be a lot more of the changes, which should let you know already that you might have picked the right first character. And as a reminder, guys, if you want to see a lot more analytical or just discussion-based content around Darktide or whatever games I end up covering in the future, who knows, then you should definitely subscribe. Help me reach Warhammer 40k subs. I greatly appreciate it. I love having these sort of chill discussion-based videos, and yeah, I'm very pleased that so many of you guys have been supporting me this year, so thanks for that. Okay, so let's start with our first place, the most powerful class in the game right now. I think it should come as no surprise. I'm still firmly standing behind the Psyker as being the strongest class in the game, and this was a cataclysmic shift for me that happened after the Bound by Duty update reworked the Psyker tree. Now, first of all, when that happened, the Psyker was like patently broken, had like certain talents that were just, I mean, for instance, Psychonetic's Aura was allowing you to infinitely chain smite and infinitely cast your staff and stuff like that, which was insane. But this class is still the absolute pinnacle of power in the game right now, and it's like just so many different facets all at once. I think what has happened for Psyker, and the reason probably why I took so long to come around to it, you know, famously I rank Psyker as like the lowest way back when, is that the Psyker is like sleeper OP, right? Until you have a certain level of skill or competency at playing Psyker, once you can finally get yourself around and come to terms with the fact that he is pretty squishy and that he has, you know, these certain deficiencies in the ways to deal with certain enemy engagements, once you learn how to deal with those things, his potential becomes truly unchained. And then he has so much untapped potential in there. There's literally like infinite amount of DPS you could be putting out with this character. And I think the same thing befell Fat Shark as the designers of the game, as over the years what you see is patch after patch after patch, this character gets buffed, gets buffed, you know, just adding more and more stats to something like Scryer's Gaze, right? Scryer's Gaze, even in this patch, or even in Bound by Duty, got more buffs, got additional toughness regenerated per second. You know, that sort of stuff has added up over time, and finally it has reached a critical mass where even a complete Psyker dullard like myself was able to pick up this character and just absolutely destroy a game with it. And I went, oh, like it finally clicked. They dumbed it down. They made it overpowered to the point where I couldn't even deny it anymore, because the threshold to clear for personal skill in order to exploit the power that lie within the Psyker has been lowered dramatically. He is so much tankier than he was before this Bound by Duty update. He's got a bunch of additional toughness, tons of ways of regenerating that toughness. All of his abilities are just super, super good. I mean, Scryer's Gaze is everything that Rampage wishes it could be off of the Hive Scum. We of course have the bubble, which is just so invaluable. It is such a like crazy valuable defensive mechanism in the game, and it stabilizes teams. And then you can do Venting Shriek, which is the top of the line staff users can just pump out millions upon millions of damage. Yeah, the class is absurdly broken, and a lot of that comes down to, you know, the flame staff, of course. But even if you were to remove or somehow nerf the flame staff on this character, he's got a ton of things to fall back on. You could always second pick the Void Blast staff, which is pretty dang good as well. You have things like the Force Greatsword, the Force Sword, the Dueling Sword, all of which are incredibly strong. And the class has access to all of them. So yeah, there's really no way to keep this guy down currently, because he's a hydra of power. There's like 5 or 6 different ways that you could build this character. Every one of his ultimates is extremely powerful. He's got multiple absolute S tier weapons that he can use to become either the best melee DPS in the game or the best range DPS in the game, and yeah, be super safe while doing it. So yeah, this class is very potent, and I believe it will remain so for the time being. Like I said before, the whole reason the class has been buffed to this extent is because it's a hard class for people to wrap their heads around. And if you're looking at the win rates, if you're fat shark and you're looking at the back end win rates, and you're seeing that players below a certain percentile of skill are getting their ass handed to them because they're playing Psyker, well, you're just going to buff the class, right? So that people have better results with Psyker. But for the players who have passed that threshold, that just turns them into absolute beasts. And that is what has happened here, and that is why Psyker is the reigning king. All right, so there is number 1 done. You know, comment again down below, edit your post. If you didn't put Psyker first, edit your post and put it first. And say, yep, had it the whole time, got it right, champ. All right, so let's go on to number 2, the second most powerful class, bringing it up behind Psyker. This is just the same as last time. I am still going with the Veteran. The Veteran has actually had 2 significant changes, and there's one pending change that I want to make people aware of, but that has not yet happened, and I don't know if it will happen. So the really big change is that the cooldown changes that happened with this Veteran, or with the patch with Bound by Duty, they have affected the ability for the Veteran to chain shout constantly. Previously, he had a cooldown on a ability called Tactical Awareness that was 6 flat seconds removed from your cooldown every time you killed a specialist, every single time. So in missions where it's like summoning, like a Maelstrom mission where it summons like a dozen dogs or more, you would just be chain shouting, just boom, 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 knocking everything around. Pretty amazing. Unfortunately, they have nerfed that, which I think deserved, because a lot of the other classes got their cooldowns nerfed as well. I think they're realizing that ability spam is kind of a very hard thing to balance around. So they nerfed that down to only give you 3 seconds of cooldown every 3 seconds. So basically doubling your cooldown. So that effectively lowers the cooldown on your abilities by half, which is pretty dang good, as long as you can kill 1 special every 3 seconds, which on higher difficulties isn't all that hard to do a lot of times, especially because the Veteran is very well equipped at range generally. So yeah, that was a hard nerf, but at the same time, this is a class that has, I would still say, the best single ability in the game. Now, that was the other big change that has happened to him, is the ability itself got nerfed in a hotfix after the major patch, which I don't remember if that was included in my rankings last time around. But what they did is they lowered the amount of time that the Veteran's Shout buff, the gold toughness, lingers on your character from 15 seconds to 10 seconds, which is a pretty considerable nerf. And it means that you are going to have some period of vulnerability there where you just can't be golded up all the time. And if you haven't fully understood what I mean when I say gold toughness, I believe there is a video on my channel that is all about gold toughness and explains exactly why it's a broken mechanic, why it is just so crazy valuable. It basically allows you to take free hits, more or less, and no other abilities can really enable it like in such a way. So this ability is always going to be very powerful as is, and then of course it shoves everything down around you. It can be done hands-free, meaning you can shoot, climb, rescue, whatever while you're doing it. Just an absurdly powerful ability, and seeing it nerfed a little bit, yeah, it probably pissed a couple people off, but it definitely is on the upper side as in terms of power outliers. The change that I thought might be coming, and I don't know where I saw this, but there was some discussion of a further nerf to the cooldown of it, moving it from 30 seconds to 45 seconds, and then changing the revive perk to not debuff the cooldown. So the revive perk would just become an additional thing you can pick up for 1 point. That would actually be a pretty good pickup for 1 point. You can revive people with a shout. And then the base cooldown would be 45 seconds, which I still think would be one of the better abilities in the game. So yeah, that could potentially happen, but I don't know if it will. I thought it was supposed to happen with this major patch here with the Hive Scum, but it just didn't. So it didn't materialize, so maybe they got cold feet on it, or maybe we'll see that at some time in the future. Regardless, as it currently stands, this class is definitely the second best in the game. Why do I think the Veteran is so strong? Why were there so many people crashing out like, oh my god, Veteran doesn't have anything left now that Hive Scum exists? Good lord, guys. I mean, first of all, the Veteran prints infinite grenades. Crack grenades now are one of the best grenades in the game. The Hive Scum gives crack grenades a run for its money, but you can print 60 plus of them in a game, just pulling them out of your ass. Like literally, I don't know where he's keeping all these things. And being able to shell out those grenades alone could be like a class defining power. But then of course, you've also just got super solid defensive mechanisms, such as Catch Your Breath, which regenerates 5% of your toughness per second when you haven't been hit by a melee attack in the last 8 seconds or so, whatever it is. And then you've got Shout, of course. You've got 3 really solid keystones. I mean, Focus Target has been buffed and buffed and buffed to the point where, you know, now it's so easy to tag any enemy and you'll immediately get like 15% damage on them, and then immediately give your whole team like 12% damage, including you. So this can be a very strong buff, and it's like just super open-ended. It works with many builds. Of course, you've got Weapon Specialist, which is just free reloading, free ammo, effectively. Not free ammo, but like free action economy, more or less, and just a bunch of really good stats. You've got Survivalist Aura, which just prints free ammo for the entire team and can more or less stabilize your ammo economy when you are playing with a team that is using some ammo. You really don't have to suffer for the pickups much at all. And yeah, just a ton of very valuable things like Field Improvisation, which can give the health packs the ability to cleanse your corruption and replenish grenades and blitzes for the entire team. Stupid good stuff. And yeah, the one thing that's really holding the Veteran back is a lack of diversity. This is a thing that I believe they are going to address in the future. They have already said that they are intending to return and do more changes, especially to the Veteran and the Psyker. The Veteran needs other abilities that are functional. Executioner's Stance is basically a nothing ability as it currently stands. It highlights enemies and gives you extra damage, which you generally don't need. Even on the highest difficulties, most Veteran weapons are knocking out those enemies in 1 or 2 shots. So like, yeah, what does a plasma gun or a bolter Veteran care about an ability, or even a revolver Veteran care about an ability that can make enemies highlighted and take more damage? I can already see the enemies and they're already dying in 1 shot, so what's the freaking point? So yeah, that ability needs to probably be like brought up a lot in terms of power in order to be relevant, especially now that we see the Hive Scum has like a cooler version of this that offers more, I believe. And then of course we've got on the other side maybe the worst ability in the game, Infiltrate, which has an absurdly long cooldown for a stealth ability, and the Veteran is not exactly a character that you want to be going stealth with because yeah, you're not able to slip and slide and dip and duck and dive your way out of situations like the Zealot can when he's going into stealth for approximately every 8 seconds. So yeah, I would love to see those 2 abilities get reworked and brought up to roughly the power level of the Shout. I think, in my personal opinion, my pie in the sky dream for veteran is that veteran is given some buffs to his using of weapons that aren't those super OP S tier weapons, and then also at the same time they should do that 45-second nerf change to the shout, and then make reviving part of the shout an extra node there for no additional seconds, and then they should buff the other two abilities, or even just rework those abilities entirely. I think they'll always forever stay with the Executioner stance because that's just such an iconic ability for veteran at this point, but they need to give it something, like maybe make the bullets heat seeking or whatever. I don't know, but that's beside the point. So the class is super strong. You'll find it very commonly in teams just because of the immense damage that this thing can push out, while also being one of the most valuable team members to have around, because you're printing infinite ammo for your team. You are producing your own grenades, so you're not stealing those grenades from the Hive Scum or the Ogryn or whoever. You are, of course, shouting, you're tagging. Yeah, you're a very, very valuable team player, and at the same time, you're doing some of the highest damage in the game, and from ranged as well. You being able to shoot stuff with the plasma gun alone is a very, very big feather in this class's cap. So I think he very comfortably sits in that second place spot, and probably will stay there for some time, until such time as some more buffs come out for these other classes. Let's move down to the number 3 spot, which is, as I said last time, well, I guess last time number 3 was 3 out of 5, so it was dead in the middle. This time 3 is on the better side of the sort of paradigm here. I'm going to put the RBDs in this spot. I'm going to put RBDs in 3rd place. I think that despite the number of nerfs that RBDs has suffered over these past number of patches, it is still a very, very strong class. And more importantly, it's a extremely usably strong class. By that, what I mean is this class is so simple. You have so many ways of regenerating your toughness, and there is so simple to deal an effective amount of damage with them. Just take your mace and just hold down the W key or forward on the joystick if you're playing console, and just walk into a horde of enemies and just left click as fast as you can, and you will deal good damage and you'll stay safe and not take any damage while doing it. You've got the dog there to free you up, or you can swap the dog out and pick up a bunch of extra stats, as well as the ability to regenerate those shock mines. That did get a nerf, by the way. So those shock mines are now 90-second cooldown instead of 60, but still, I mean, like, those abilities, those shock mines are crazy. And the fact that you can carry 3 of them, you know, every, what is that? Every 4.5 minutes or so, you'll have all 3 back, which means you're putting down, the 30 of these, 25 to 30 shock mines a game. They're instant combat situation winners. They'll just stop a whole horde all by themselves. So still an absurdly really good talent. The dog is still very good, especially very useful when you're lower in the skill tier. Also, honestly, he's good all the way along. It's just that, like, controlling the dog and using them effectively a lot of times is a little bit more difficult. This class also has some very strong abilities. I mean, Castigator Stance, I think, has lost a lot of the love that it had, because players are getting better to the point with RBDs that they're like, wait a second, this class is already super fucking hard to kill. I don't need to have a button to press that literally makes me invincible. I would rather have a button to press that gives everybody a huge buff, or a button to press that shoves everything to the ground and makes it so it's super easy to murder stuff. And that's sort of the paradigm, the meta that is evolving around the RBDs. So he's very, very strong because of his ability to control the battlefield, and he's supposed to be kind of like a control warrior, right? He's supposed to be like tanky, a frontliner who's like a disruptor. He can shove stuff down, but maybe he doesn't have the best damage potential in the world. But here's the thing about this class, is his damage potential is still really, really, really freaking high. For a character that literally just unga bunga bonks stuff with a stick and a board, like, his damage is quite appreciable, and I think that was like the trade-off that they were intending to make. You know, you have the Hive Scum, who is on the other edge of this sword, where he's supposed to be a lot of damage and very little defense, and this is supposed to be a lot of defense and very little damage. And although you can feel the lack of offense sometimes when you're against boss monsters and stuff on the RBDs, but against pretty much everything else, you stagger it pretty dang quickly, and then it dies within a couple more hits. And because a lot of mace weapons are very good at armor penetration innately, he doesn't have any problems with the higher health enemies such as crushers, and also that ability just to stagger or CC lock down a million billion things, send the dog out to CC stuff. Yeah, he's just a very valuable teammate. He's got a lot of utility that he can bring to the team. Shock mines, dog, just being a stable, like a rock solid core to build the team around. I'm never upset to see a to see an RBDs on the team. I think they're a very dependable character, and they're damn hard to kill, which I think is a very powerful thing there. So that is what I'll say about the RBDs. I still think he is just barely edging out our next candidate, the person who's going to be at the 4th place slot. But this is where stuff is going to start to move around, guys, because I have to insert the Hive Scum in here somewhere. Is it going to be at the number 4 slot? Spoilers, no. the number 4 slot here, the just below average, I would say, in terms of the grand scheme of things right now, is the Zealot, which should paint a pretty stark image for the remaining 2 characters. The Zealot is like the archetypical like Darktide character. I feel like there's so many solo runners or like very skilled players who play Zealot because he is just like the baseline experience. You've got Fury of the Faithful, charge, big weapons. It's all about that melee prowess, being combat. It is very Vermintide-esque in the way that it feels. And while that is a very, very cool way to play, and it can be powerful, I think that alone, like that sort of that design around him being a basically just one-to-one ported copy of the Zealot from Vermintide is playing against his strengths right now. Because the Zealot, while he is very powerful, they've given him a ton of damage buffs to his melee. You can't ascend past a certain point if all you've got is strong melee damage right now. Melee damage is good, but it requires you to be in a place to do a thing, right? So like you could have a class that has the potential melee DPS of the plasma gun, but the plasma gun veteran would still be better because the plasma gun veteran can stand in one spot, one advantageous position and hold with his team and then deal that DPS at range versus the Zealot who has to run in there. And yes, while he can do some very good melee DPS, he has to actually get his ass in there and be on the front lines and be at risk and be potentially out of position with the rest of the team. So melee characters will always have a disadvantage over ranged characters in general. This is why, a lot of games, it's supposed to be this way in like MMOs like World of Warcraft, but it is, as a warrior in Death Knight main, it really never felt like it was the case. It's supposed to be the case that the melee DPS have a higher potential ceiling because they are rewarded more when they can actually stay on the target because they should have a higher baseline damage versus the ranged characters who can always be attacking the boss or whatever it is because they are positioning independent and therefore they should have a lower baseline damage to compensate for that higher uptime. That is sort of the dynamic that is at play here in Darktide, where yes, you can be an extremely, extremely strong melee character, but if you're a one-trick pony and melee DPS is your one trick, then you are going to be lagging behind. And that is where I believe the Zealot is at right now. I'm not saying he's terrible, right? You can still pull some absurd feats of damage. You can like one-shot or like two-shot bosses. You've got Eviscerator, you've got Shroud Field, and he's also just the king of clutch. Even still, with all these other characters, we've got best character in the game at clutching, I believe. Just the ability to be fast as fuck, outmaneuver, be unkillable. That is definitely one of the Zealot's strong suits, and not weak by any means, but lacking some of those additional utilities that put other classes above him. So if I was comparing him to the RBDs, the nearest upstairs neighbor of the Zealot, and saying like, okay, how could the Zealot move up? Well, what has the RBDs got that's better than the Zealot? The RBDs has the ability to just stagger a big swath of enemies in front of him with his charge ability, which is just generally better than charging in and letting those enemies still be enabled. The RBDs has the capability to lay down shock mines, which are just game changers for the whole team. He could also bring like a support ability and be able to fight during it. For For the Zealot, you can either really go a fully sort of selfish melee-focused build and get some pretty good results out of that, or you can go as a chorus Zealot and then just sacrifice 1/3 to 1/2 of your potential damage in any given game by supporting your team with a pretty dang good ultimate. But at the same time, is it worth it, right? Is it worth it to have a character that's going to do half the damage of other characters for a buff? I would posit currently probably not. I think you could pull off most encounters with a veteran with shout and a psyker with bubble, and you'd probably be all good. That's plenty of regeneration, plenty of tankiness, especially the more and more you know what you're doing. I think that chorus, especially back in the day before chorus received its nerf and Bound by Duty, was a win button, because it's just like, okay, it just turns off the entire enemy encounter. Very, very easy to pull off in repetition. Didn't require a huge skill cap. It would be like the character I would assign someone to if they were like a level 5 Havoc and I was trying to boost them to a 30. I'm like, here, play Chorus Zealot and just be a chorus bot for me. I'm glad that they did away with that playstyle because it was quite toxic. You know, even as someone who like posits to have invented it, it was very toxic. And yeah, so that is sort of where he stands, is like he can be a support and, in my opinion, sacrifice far too much of his offensive potential to be said support, or he can be an offensive melee damage dealer, but melee damage dealing alone really isn't enough to justify your role in this game right now. Okay, so that is where the Zealot as is, and let's move down to our last two, which are the Ogryn and Hive Scum. Yeah, you might have some interesting thoughts about where I'm going to place these here. I'm going to go ahead and address by placing one, you'll know both. So let's go ahead and place the 5th place class here, second worst, I guess. Again, by the way, none of these characters are all that bad. It's just that some characters are a little bit weaker. It's like, okay, yeah, can you dig a hole like you know, in like holes with Shia LaBeouf? Can you dig one of those holes with like a little bit of a worse shovel? Yeah. Would you rather have a backhoe to do it? Yes, right? Like, you would absolutely rather bring the Psyker or the veteran to the party because there is easy mode destroying this content. But you can do it with any character. It's just going to be more work and more skill required to do it with the same effectiveness with a worse character. I feel bad saying worse, but it is true, right? These are less powerful characters. So I'm going to give the number 5 slot, the runner-up worst, to the Ogryn this time. So if you were keeping track from last time, the Ogryn has dropped 1 slot and the Zealot has moved up 1. The Ogryn, I had not played with him enough to really appreciate how much the nerfs to his defensive and his offensive talents hurt him in Bound by Duty. It was only once I really started getting in there and trying to play those same melee builds again and see similar results. I was like, shit, like it does kind of hurt him a lot. So the problem that Ogryn currently faces is that he has like 2 builds, right? He has just, well, I guess he has like pickaxes and stuff, but like he has a melee focused build that's using heavy hitter. I don't think anyone is really using the center feel no pain keystone, but you're pretty much just using taunt. Taunt is just a very, very good ability. So we'll assume that like every archetype for him uses taunt. It's just super, super strong. And that's probably a big portion of why he is sitting above the Hive Scum, is because taunt exists and it's just so good for the rest of the team. So yeah, he can taunt and he can bully stuff around, and that makes him a very safe character to play with generally. But his problem is because he's so large and because he's slow comparatively to a lot of other classes, you are going to take hits. Like, you cannot be perfectly evasive like you can on other classes by positioning properly or ducking and diving. You are going to take hits, and previously, because he had so much damage reduction built into his kit, I mean, he has been like 1,000 cutted down from having somewhere in the 70% range of damage reduction to like 45 or 50%. He's lost some damage reduction from his bleed stacks. He's lost the damage reduction just from being over 75% stamina. He's lost some from I'm strongest or whatever it is, like your no hurt friends, whatever that one is, all the way down at the bottom. All that stuff is taking very, very small hits, but cumulatively it really does add up, because this is a character, as I talked about previously when I made a video specifically on him, he was able to just simply overpower a lot of lower tier content, because the bleed stacking from the talent Batter, which we'll talk about in a second, was just erasing the health of almost every enemy, and then his innate damage reduction, like the significant amount of reduced damage he was taking, was allowing him to just take pretty much every fight and be like, okay, I took a 2 hits, but I have literally an effective 2100 HP pool that I'm pulling from here. I'm not really worried about taking it down when I have 300 freaking HP and a hit does like 4 damage. So yeah, that was where he was at, but now they have reduced that tankiness a lot, and it actually does feel considerable, because again, like I said, it's hard, or it's not impossible, but it is hard to dodge every single attack, and that's where you're going to start to really feel the pain as Ogryn, is because he is not able to maneuver around dogs or mutants or trappers or whatever it might be, those specialists or flamers especially. Like, he can't extricate himself from those really sticky situations. That is going to be his major undoing in combats, is because it's only a matter of time when you're in a combat and you're jamming, you're hitting stuff with your club before one of these trappers engages, and it's like, damn, your task at dodging a trapper on this class is like 75% again as hard as any other class. Like, it's almost doubly hard because your hitbox is so much larger, and you make one mistake and you're fucked. So yeah, like that sort of stuff really hurts his power positioning. I was really liking where he was at before, because he was so strong that he could bully his way through a lot of content. I understand that it's probably not good. Like, I even made the video on it. I understand it's probably not good for low level content in the game, because he just could, as they said, when they made the nerfs to him, it was like Arbites and Ogryn have like a disproportionately high win rate, some of the highest win rates in the game, and that's because on Heresy and below, these guys could literally just face tank their way through the entire game, just swinging the clubs left and right and just win. And that starts to dry up at the upper echelons of gameplay. When you enter into Havoc, Ogryn is still really good, right? And Ogrynheimer is still like the best probably way to play him. It hasn't really gotten nerfed like the other one has, but yeah, like you can feel the difference in Havoc, is what I want to say. The other really big change being the change to Batter, removing the ability to stack 2 bleed stacks on every light attack, and making it so that, yeah, heavies still do 4, but light attacks only do 1. That was a pretty big blow, honestly, because the difference between starting a combat and immediately light attacking an enemy like 4 times and now they have 8 stacks, versus I can heavy attack them 1 time and then hit them like twice and now they have 4 stacks. Because of the way that bleed stacking is not linear, each stack of bleed does disproportionately more than the one before it. Because of that sort of principle, this nerf actually hits him quite hard. It was a big portion of his DPS, and it was cleaning up a ton of enemies, because you would just light attack at a horde, and like within 3 strikes, you have stacked 6 stacks of bleed on those small enemies, and that just causes them to fall down and die. Now with 3 light attacks, you are stacking only 3 stacks of bleed. And yeah, that's not very much at all. So that has really hurt him. And then at the same time, they have taken a little bit of an axe to the talent tree heavy hitter. So that lost some impact, that lost some cleave and some other stuff. Like, yeah, they've just taken a little bit off of the top everywhere here. And listen, I don't think the Ogryn's in a bad place. I just think that at the same time this was going on, when they saw the Ogryn and the Arbites were running away with it because they were just clobbering Damnation and below, no problem, that was at the same time that they gave massive buffs to the Veteran and to the Psyker, where they literally made the Veteran able to like one-shot crushers and kill bosses in like 7 seconds, and they made the Psyker into a demigod. Like, that stuff happening at the same time feels bad for Ogryn players, because Ogryn players were pretty like tough before. They at least had that going for them, and now they're reducing that toughness. So, and what do you have? So yeah, that's where Ogryn is. And the really big problem for Ogryn for me is that there just really is not much diversity left in the way to play this character. I don't want to say he needs another rework, but it's because he's limited on weapon choices. first of all. And second of all, he's limited on ability choices. Because while you can choose to, play either taunt or charge, that's effectively just playing a melee build. And then you can play a range build, but you are not going to be playing ranged with point blank barrage because it's an ability that just contributes nothing to the character. Like it's just a nothing ability. It's kind of in the same vein as Executioner Stance. Actually, I take it back. Did I say Executioner Stance was the worst ability? No, I don't think I did, but it's a pretty bad ability. It just does nothing. Oh, I said Infiltrate's the worst. I might take that back. Point Blank Barrage might be the worst, right? Because at least Infiltrate can give you some ability to accomplish objectives. Point Blank Barrage is like, I mean, what can you do with that you can't just do by shooting normally, right? It doesn't barely even give you any additional damage. So yeah, that's where the Ogryn is sitting at. He's got one dead ability, and they have just kind of tickled down his damage potential and his tankiness potential. And I think it's a reasonable way to balance a class, right? You don't want a class to be too tanky and do too much damage and then just face roll content. But at the same time, you've got a ton of other classes right now that are way more problematic than this guy and RBDs are. And like they need the nerf bat soon if we're going to be doing this with these guys and leaving them down here. Okay, well, all that being said, let's get to our last character here and talk about the Hive Scum, who I'm placing in last place currently. Why am I placing the Hive Scum in last place? Well, here's the thing, guys. I just genuinely don't feel, after, 150 hours or so of Hive Scum, I just genuinely don't feel like there's anything that this class can accomplish that I can't accomplish with some other class. Is he fun? Fuck yeah, dude. I have a great time playing this class. It is so adrenaline pumping. It is so fucking funny to just drop like 7 med crates and then shoot your infantry autogun at like 80,000 rounds per second. That is awesome, and it feels great. And I have giggled more playing this class than I have playing any other class, I think, just because he's so absurd in the things that he can pull off. But I think what happened here, as someone who played in the influencer playtest, or whatever you want to call it, the Cool Kids Club playtest, this class was literally doubly as powerful before. The Rampage ability had 100% base damage and 50% from the additional node, which literally got slashed in half. The duration on the ability Desperado was like double that. Yeah, like this class was, every stim had a cooldown of only 30 seconds outside, no matter how many points you put into it. So like, yeah, the class was stupid good on the server. However, even at that time, we could tell, like us playtesters, we're not playtesters, but us, fucking, what do we call us? Tubers, or whatever. We could sense that something was wrong about this character because we were failing in like 2 or 3 man Auric runs, like not even Havoc runs. When the game was like 3 or even just duo RBDs, this is something I mentioned in my video about this. When I was running RBDs, I was actually just solo queuing. I was using the Solomon to run Auric Maelstroms and just dunking on bosses and clearing the whole level by myself, because that was the only way I could get a good like clip of me being the carry, because RBDs was just that strong on pre-release, because you could survive pretty much any encounter, and then you could deal enough damage to kill the bosses, and off the back end of that, like, he was impressive. This character can deal some damage, but the survivability is just not there. I mean, it's gotten better since the playtester thing, but yeah, like, he has no survivability, and that means that you spend a lot of time running around the arena trying to stay the fuck away from enemies. Like, you cannot let them touch you. You're playing a game of tag and every enemy is it. That is, it's fun. Like, it's hitting the desired design goals for Fat Shark. They wanted this sort of float like a butterfly thing where you've got your enemies who are in this melee zone and you're hovering just outside of it, just shooting them in the face or jumping in and getting a couple of fleet like snipey melee hits done. They really nailed that, but at the same time, I just don't think the damage potential is there for the risk it puts you at, because while I can do a lot of damage and have like nearly infinite ammo by going Uzis or Shredder or infantry autogun and just getting up in enemy faces and like blast them down, I can deal like at least 85 to 90% of that damage with a recon lasgun on the veteran, staying at like 1,000 yards of range and just shooting the boss, melting the boss with burn stacks, killing everything else, killing every dog, and keeping in position, first of all. And at the same time, I can maintain my position, because if something tries to push on me, and push me out of the position that I'm currently holding, which is generally you want to like push up and hold a strategically advantaged position and then like take your fights there. The veteran can push back in that case, and I think that's what sets every other character ahead of the Hive Scum. The Hive Scum plays like a Zealot that cannot take a single hit, because the Zealot can like dip, duck, dive, and dodge, but the Zealot even then can stay roughly where he's at and assert his domination over like a certain area of the map, which is very, very important at a medium to high level plays. You're like, okay, this room is really strong for us to be in, right? Because if we go outside, we're gonna get picked apart by gunners, so we cannot lose this room. We need to control the door. Every other character here can control that door. They can blast stuff hard enough to keep it out of there. They can, they can hold the line. The Hive Scum is the one class that right now is not equipped to do that, and that was a really big thing that we were running into when we were playing this in groups with all Hive Scum. Is like, okay, you're doing great. Things feel amazing when you've got all your abilities up and you're just rolling over enemies. You're just blasting way through DPS. But the second that a big wave of bulwarks or like crushers spawns and you get put on the back foot where you have to retreat to actually put in the damage to kill those enemies, or a boss or whatever, now you just start this never-ending cycle where you have to back up because you're a kiting character. You're not a melee fighting character. You can't stand there and just like, like tank the boss face to face like an Ogryn could. Like an Ogryn could pull that entire army and hold them and block them in a corner or whatever, like shove them down. Just shock mine could happen for the RPDs, right? The Psyker can just flame staff them all to death and kite them around that way. This character has to run for their life and kite backwards and kite backwards and kite backwards, and that loses you ground, and then you try to regain the ground, and that gives the game time to spawn more enemies. So that was just happening over and over. And at the same time, you're in this battle of attrition where you're not really very tough, you're not tanky, so every hit you take is actually kind of a big deal. And it's not very easy to take 0 damage in this class, as opposed to the Zealot, who like I think is still just the uncontested king of dodging, right? The Zealot, even though this class has some very good dodging potential, the Zealot can get toughness back when he dodges. Even if he misses the dodge, he's not going to take almost any damage at all because of the high damage reduction. This class has some good capabilities at dodging, but if you don't dodge, big punishment is coming your way. So you cannot fuck it up even one time. And that's going to put him a lot lower for most players. Even myself as a seasoned player, I was getting downed a lot, a lot. And they have reworked him considerably in terms of shifting his talents around so that he has more mainline accessible defensive talents. But here's the thing. Even with those defensive talents, I still think he's lagging behind every other character in the game in terms of defensive talents, like toughness regeneration or whatever it might be. And then he is really only at the level of every other character in terms of his DPS potential. He's definitely not beating the Psyker in terms of DPS potential, so that's right out. His melee can do pretty dang good. I would say it competes with the Zealot's melee because they're both crit-based melee fighters, so they can get similar boss damage, similar horde damage with their melee configurations. And and then that's about it, right? Like, he does have some team play with stim supply, I suppose, so he can go a support build, but the thing he's really lacking is the ability to stabilize a fight. He's a very hard character to use to stabilize a bad situation, versus the ability to place down the bubble, or the ability to throw out a taunt or a chorus or shout or whatever it is and just turn a situation from bad to worse. This character, I think the one thing that the Hive Scum has that's really top of the line, he definitely has the best blitz abilities in the game. Like the rocket launcher and the chem grenade specifically are disgustingly strong. They're definitely like the best blitz abilities in the game. You definitely want to be giving your grenade packs to the Hive Scum for that reason. But outside of that, I can't think of a whole lot of reason why I would want to bring him other than he's going to have these strong grenades, and if he brings stims, I can get the benefits of stims too. But like, why would you want to bring a melee scum over a Zealot? I can't think of a whole lot of reason, because the Zealot can get, I would say, 90+% of that damage and be so much more stable, so much more reliable that that Zealot is not going to go down or not going to take a lethal hit and will be there to clutch when you need them to be. You could accomplish similar, like, or even better ranged feats with the Veteran, because the Veteran can penetrate armor, can horde clear, has infinite grenades, right? Has a shout ability that affects the entire team. Yeah, as it stands right now, I get what they're going for, right? I think that many people do, and it's an exciting way to play, and it is very fun. I understand what the principle is at work here, but I just don't think he is powerful enough. And that is, I mean, inherently why he's at the bottom of the power structure. The class doesn't output enough DPS to be a DPS glass cannon. Like, there is one character in the game that is supposed to be a glass cannon right now, or was ahead of them, and that's the Psyker. And the Psyker, it does so much damage. Like, the Psyker will 2 or 3x a Hive Scum, you know, when played comparably with a good build. Scryer's Gaze alone is just so disgustingly strong. So like, go melee Hive Scum versus melee Psyker with Force Greatsword, and watch yourself get fucking obliterated on Hive Scum, because you'll just get like outrun by this super fast guy with a huge greatsword that can cleave hordes and just, like, you know, omni slash everything. Yeah, so like this, if we're gonna go full glass cannon, we really need to be leaning into that damage potential. And if you don't lean into the damage potential, then you have to give him more defenses to equalize this, and then he's losing his identity as like a glass cannon sort of, you know, little nuisance enemy. So yeah, he's in a tricky spot. I also just kind of feel like this is a very selfish class outside of Stim Supply, as I'll mention. I feel like this class is very selfish. It doesn't contribute a whole lot to bring one of these to the team, versus you could deal very comparable damage, probably even more damage, as a Psyker with the Flame Staff and the Bubble, or a Veteran with Recon Lasgun or Plasma with Shout and Focus Target, right? Yeah, like a Ogryn with Taunt can melee effectively, and the lack of the ability to stagger enemies, that's something that a lot of players at lower levels won't really appreciate. But as you climb through the ranks, being able to stagger and control large packs of enemies is invaluable, because otherwise they're going to run over your position, they're going to push you out of position, you're going to get shot by a bunch of shit, and you are going to suffer, like, taking way more attacks than you need to, versus the Ogryn and the Arbites, who can just shove these enemies to the ground and keep them rolling around down there until they're dead, which makes them very strong. So yeah, listen, I'm not saying that the Hive Scum is bad, especially I definitely approve of it's mystery approved, guys. The rework they did where they shifted all the talents around, that has made him a lot better, a lot more playable. But I think there is a lot of weakness still here to address. I think they're, like, the fact that we have 2 keystones in this class, I made a video about them, you probably saw it, but in fact there's 2 keystones in this class that have a terrible, like, abysmal uptime and contribute very little overall damage potential. Like, we're talking about a 20% damage buff potentially with like a 50% uptime. So like, that is very weak and milquetoast as compared to a lot of classes. And then like the ability like Desperado, right, it gives you infinite ammo, I guess, but you already have infinite ammo from a talent called Pickpocket. What does Desperado give you? The ability to dodge every range attack? I just don't think that's worth it at this point. So yeah, I would like Desperado to get some sort of rework and buff it up, because yeah, we're in a situation where if this class, especially in the range configuration, if they removed Pickpocket, this class would be absolutely dead on arrival in terms of competing with range damage. And I just don't think it has too much else to offer. It has very competitive damage, but not much else. And that's what I'll say on the matter. So anyway, there you go, guys. That is everything. That is all 6 classes. So to recap, in case you want to skip to this point right here, first of all, fuck you. Go back and watch the video again, you cheater. Just kidding. I love you. I understand. people have better things to do. But yeah, the Psyker is king on the mountain, then the Veteran, because shout and just quality weapons all around, team play contributions. The Arbites is still good, clinging to a nice solid core, very solid weapons, and just utility for the whole team, and very hard to kill. Then we have the Zealot, who also is very hard to kill, but has a little bit less going on in terms of that team play, and yeah, is pigeonholed into just being a melee only boy, which only can take you so far in this game. And then we have the Ogryn, who is sort of still a melee-only boy, or you can go like Ogrynheimer, I guess, but like melee-only boy that is now getting more and more vulnerable with each patch to every fucking disabler or special or annoyance in this game, and just getting jammed up by being too big and too immobile for how crazy and hectic this game is getting. But still has taunt and some other good things. And then finally wrapping it up, bottoming it out with the Hive Scum, who just isn't enough of anything yet for me to really feel like he goes any higher. He's just lacking generally, and I'll leave it across the board there. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. If you made it this far, you're truly a legend. I appreciate you. Have a good Christmas, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll be streaming. Listen, who gives a shit about family, right? I got a stream. And anyway, I'll see you then. Bye, guys.